We live in a fantasy world, a world of illusion. The great task in life is to see reality. What is up, family? Welcome to another episode of the quote breakdown. That is the quote that I'm going to be breaking down today. Welcome to the show. Shout out to the audio listeners listening this past week. Last week's numbers was bigger than the entire month of August. So last week's numbers alone was there was more listeners last week than it was the entire month of August. So I appreciate you guys. The podcast is growing. Not so much for the YouTube channel, though we just started this not too long ago. So I understand. So we're going to be building this up. We're going to look at this a couple of years from now. We're going to be like, remember when the YouTube numbers were slacking a little bit? But shout out to my YouTube listeners and watchers. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Again, it helps with the show. Um, I still appreciate you guys. I appreciate you all. Let's just get right into this. The caption of this quote is: This post does not make sense to the dead mind that just exists without questioning. The mind that just accepts does not think. It allows others to do the thinking for them. Always being psychologically dependent is the reason why most people are lost and have no real direction in life. The greatest task is when you finally see this reality and understand what's actually going on in this world. You will start to understand why school, politics, religion, marriage, banks, and all forms of entertainment are heavily pushed on us from an early age. When you become clear, you see the world from a whole new perspective. Amazing. Okay, let's dive into this. So, what do I mean by fantasy world? And when I say, we live in a fantasy world, a world of illusion. By the way, this is a original quote. However, I did take 99% of this quote from somebody else, and I wish I have their name so I can quote them. Matter of fact, I'll look it up to make sure I give some credit when credit's due. Um, I changed it up, however, because I didn't agree with the quote, with how they ended the quote, but um, let me see. I think it's. Hold on, I gotta do this. This means a lot to me more than anything. Okay. So Irish Murdoch, Iris Iris Murdoch, right? So this is by Irish Murdoch. They're. Hopefully, I'm saying the name right. Their original quote was, "We live in a fantasy world, a world of illusion. The great task in life is to find reality." That was their quote: "Find reality." I don't agree with finding reality. So I changed up the word find with see reality. The great task in life is to see reality. And the reason why I did this is because reality is right in front of us, right? But when the mind is being pulled in many different directions, you can't see it because you're blinded, right? You're blinded by distractions, by illusions, by fantasy. And being blinded by these things, you cannot see reality. Now, when you eliminate and step back and observe these things and see that we do live in a fantasy world, an illusion, in a world of illusion, right? You can finally see reality. So I don't think it's finding. I agree with seeing. So which is why I didn't quote them on this one, but I think they still deserve a little bit of shout out. Um, what do I mean by fantasy world and a world of illusion? What do I mean by that? Well, listen, human beings have the ability, which this is what separates us from any type of other species in this world, right? Any other species in this world, cats, dogs, birds, everything that separates us is the fact that we have the ability to create illusions and fantasies, right? We can use our minds and our imagination. We can look up to the sky and see a star, you know, we can see a star going, moving fast and say, oh, that's a shooting star, and create all these stories about why the shooting star is real. We have the ability to create. This is what we were doing. Even when we used to hunt for buffaloes and we used to eat the buffaloes at night, We would create the fire. First of all, we had to learn how to manipulate fire. Once we got that in, we used the fire. We put the buffalo over the fire using some sticks to be able to hold it up, right? And even around the fire at nighttime, we would create stories. And the legend has it that the buffalo is one of the most powerful beings of this planet of this time. Just think about the stories we had to tell when in the beginning of time, when we would have to find something to do while we eat, right? And that's what we've done for all our life. Created stories. Look, we created language. We created so many things in order for us to maneuver and live in this world, right? So, with that being said, we have the ability to do so. And that's what we did. We've grown from that time. If we look at, caveman time and the beginning of time, if we look at those times, like the first Homo sapiens till now is totally different. It's totally different, right? The things we care about is different. We've grown to the point where we don't use our natural human instincts anymore, right? That primate side of us, right? Where we need to go hunting. We need to use our minds. Our heart needs to be racing. We need to be strategic. We don't use these things anymore. What we do is many times we take that and apply it to something else, right? But it's minimum from what we used to do, right? It's not running away from a lion or something like that, or being in competition and trying to find a way to outsmart a lion. What we used to do, this is how smart human beings are. What we used to do is human beings, in order to scare away a lion, so a lion or a predator would like kill, let's say, a buffalo or something, right? Or a gazelle or something that we were supposed to eat. I don't know if we were eat gazelles, but a buffalo or something, right? A buffalo would be on the floor, and whatever killed it, we would pull up, right? And we would take three humans, we'll put them on top of each other, right? Stack them like many times. We'll like one person will be on top of the shoulder. We'll have a coat on from another animal that we probably killed, or another animal that we ate, coat of an animal or something like that, and we'll be bigger than the animal that just did the killing, right? So let's say if it's a lion that just killed this buffalo, right? And we will pull up, and we would look like a bigger, some strange, weird, bigger animal, because we will all come together. We will put, one person goes on top of the other, and then we would creep up right inside this coat, and we would look so weird that the lion would actually get scared, that the predator would actually get scared. They'd be like, what is this? I don't know what it is. And it'll run away, which leaves the dead animal on the floor, that we can take that, we can eat that, and use that coat to continue to do these things, right? This is the mind of a human being. The mind of a human being is so creative. It can create so many things in this world. Look, we created comic books, we created movies, we create all these stories about what's real and what to believe in, and we use these stories to get people's emotions involved in it. This is the ability of a human being. This is what we can do. A cat can't do that, right? A dog can't do that. So with that being said, we use this thing to create an entire fantasy world, because now those days of having to hunt are over. Those days of having to do things using our mind, being strategic, being on top of trees, waiting, studying patterns of animals. These days are over, right? We made a lot of things convenient, with which, it obviously helped us in a way, but it also destroyed us, because there's a lot of people with these new things, these new diseases now that we may not have before in the past, like depression, like just sadness every single day of not doing, right? Because human beings were meant to do. So most of the things we created are like, we created our own little fantasy world, right? Like, we follow the money system. Money is the fantasy, right? There's something we created in order for us to follow, in order for us to be structured, systematic, and make sure everybody's playing a part in this world, right? Something to focus on, something to do. We created school systems. And if you can go back in my podcast, I talked about the school systems. One of the early podcasts is, I totally forgot the name, but I talked about the school system, and I talked about, well, how, in the beginning of time, in Prussia, they had a Prussia system where they say the mind is a clean slate at birth, right? And so we can educate these minds, we can program these minds to work in factories, we can program these minds to think what we want them to think in order for us to control them. That was the Prussian model, right? We took that model and we duplicated that, and we figured out a way to do that and get people to work in factories, right? We wanted to educate them to work in factories. Years later, that turned into something else, and that evolved as well. But it's still under the same system. If you actually observe it very closely, it's still the same system. It's programming people to work a job for the rest of their life, right? It's not programming people to think for themselves. Now, I'm not saying whether or not this is good or bad. What I'm saying is this is what is, and we need to be aware of what is. So we created all these systems, right? The money system, the school system, right? All these systems we've created, we put in place to create this world that's not even real, right? That's not even real. Now, this is the problem, is if you know that you live in a fantasy world, in a world of illusion, if you are aware of this, right? Life becomes different. You start to see things from a whole new different perspective. You won't care about things what other people care about, right? You'll be very, very mentally stable, mentally strong. You'll focus on meaning and purpose. You'll focus on how can you maneuver in this fantasy world while understanding and seeing reality, right? This is why I say the great task in life is to see reality, because most people are lost within this world of illusion, and they wonder why they're so depressed. They wonder why they're so lost in this world. They don't know why this matters, right? They don't know why they're doing what they're doing. All they know is that they show up to a job they hate, and they work, and they got a paycheck, and they're like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Why is this important? So the first thing most of these people say is, oh, I want to travel. I want to do something different. I want to, go see the world or something. They say something that involves escaping, right? That I want to be able to do this. And it's all escaping the reality of their situation, because they don't know what this whole thing is about. But when one figures out, actually sees it, not just read and listens to this podcast and says, oh, yeah, we all live in a fantasy world, but actually see that this is a fantasy world within human beings, right? Because most of the things we care about was human made. Human beings created these things that most of us care about, right? And when we see that we live in this world of illusion, things that are not even real, right? We buy into stories that, fantasy stories, right? And conspiracy theories and a lot of things that we buy into. It's just, this is what the human mind does. This is what the ability it has. When you finally see reality, when you finally see what's real and what's actually going on, right? Not look within the system, but you be above the system. You're looking from above, looking down, and see these things in place. You can see why people do what they do. You can see why people are so interested in certain things in life, and why all of these things were pushed upon us as kids. And you would see that. You would start to see it. Now, the greatest task in life is to receive reality, because nobody talks about reality. Very few people educate others on reality, right? And you know, once you see it, you start to maneuver differently, and your perspective changes, your life changes, and now you become more mentally stable. You become more you become more aware, right? You don't care about things that don't actually matter. You see all these systems that are in place, right? And what you can do is either you buy into it, right? You buy into it, you live in contradiction, which means you see reality, but you still want to live in a fantasy world, which that's the contradiction that people have, the conflict in their mind, right? They live in double lives. I see reality, I know reality, right? But I still want to live within the fantasy world. I still want to care about the fantasy things, because the only reason why somebody would do that is because they don't have no actual purpose in their life, right? And that's real. When we see this, when we see people living in conflict, is they see reality, they see what is, but they don't want to see it, so they continue to live in the fantasy world. But then that questions if they actually understand what is, meaning the reality of the situation, the real if they actually see it. That's the question: is do you actually see it? Because if you see, you will act immediately, the same way as if you saw a lion, you would run, you would react to it, right? A lion chasing you, or a gorilla chasing you, you would run immediately. You would react to it immediately. You won't just stay there. Oh well, I see it, but I don't want to react to it. So that's also the question. Maybe people claim they see it, but they don't actually understand. When you understand this, everything changes. Now money's not a big deal. Money is just a game. It's like, okay, what's the system? And let me play the system, and then you'll make money, right? There will be no need for poverty. There'll be no need to be broke because you understand that all of this is a game. It's like, oh, this was created. So what are the rules? Oh, this is what you need to do. Really, right? And understand that we all live in a fantasy world, and it becomes easier to do. It makes more sense. Like the things people care about, things people find hard, difficult. I don't know. I'm scared. I'm afraid to do. You're like, yo, this shit is all fake. This shit is not even real. Let's do it. If we want to do it and participate in this fantasy world, let's just do it and understand it's not real. It's like a video game. You don't hesitate. You don't hesitate to face the final boss, right? If you're somebody who plays a video game, you're not hesitating, man. I don't know if I could play this boss, man, because I'm so scared. I'm so afraid. It's like, no, you'll keep playing and playing and playing and playing and playing until you try to beat it. And then you'll Google it, right? You'll be like, hey, man, how can I defeat the final boss? And then you'll find a way to do it because it's not real. You give yourself a chance. You keep doing it over and over and over again, right? You'll keep playing and playing and playing. It's the same thing in life. Most of the things, when you can finally see that your mind is being pulled in many different directions, you can finally get focused on the thing you want to get focused on. You can see that most of the things don't matter. They don't care about that. You won't care about what other people say, right? You'll stop caring about what other people think about. So the great task in life is to see reality. When you see it, your life will never be the same. So again, this is very difficult for me to break down. A lot of these things are complex stuff, and you know, in the episodes coming up, I'm going to continue to talk about these topics, and I'm continue to go to details on this stuff, so people can get a better understanding of what I'm actually saying. So, with that being said, family, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Take care. Peace.